If you're a contributor, when you first started your job, how were you trained? Hi, I'm David Elster, and welcome to my next AI Chore Cast, where I leverage AI to usher in forward-thinking talent development ideas to help you get noticed at work. So are you ready? Let's go ahead and start doing the chores. When you first started as a contributor, your experience was probably something like this. You went through orientation, you watched some videos, maybe you got a couple hours of in-classroom training, and then you were sent off to do your job and to fend for yourself, to learn as you go from maybe someone that was doing the job previously and they were recently promoted, or maybe it's somebody that's been there a while and is helping you show you the ropes, so to speak. But what this deep dive is going to do, it's going to really challenge that thought process that learning must happen in the classroom and that development is just for high potentials and managers within your organization. And that's the whole purpose of Talent Development 2.0, where we basically are fostering a talent development environment that is more holistic, and everyone deserves the best training, no matter where you sit inside the organization. So in this AI Chore Cast, I asked AI to look at a couple documents and create a podcast talking about these documents and how we can basically implement Talent Development 2.0. Some of the documents, of course, Doing My Chores, my book, I asked to look at that. And then a blog I recently posted that talks about how training must travel with the contributor. And also the 2025 Association for Talent Development's annual talent development report and the State of the 2026 State of the Industry report for 2026 by Gallup. So I had AI look at all those references and a few more and basically have a conversation on how can we leverage technology, how can we leverage AI, but how can we bring that all of that training and development to the contributor while they're out there doing the work, while they're out there doing the chores. So let's take a deep dive, and let me tell you, this one is very interesting. It's very thought-provoking, and it's very deep. So let's go ahead and head off into a deep dive and learn how training can travel with the contributor.
What if I told you the global economy is bleeding, like $10 trillion every single year? Not because of supply chain breakdowns or inflation, but just because the people actually doing the day-to-day work are, well, entirely checked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a staggering number. That represents about 9% of global GDP, just, vanishing into this void of disengagement.
Right. And when you look at how we treat the modern workforce, it actually makes perfect sense. Like, think about walking into any high-end restaurant.
Oh, sure.
You usually see two completely different worlds operating at the exact same time. So in the dining room, the front of house managers and the sommeliers are constantly getting development.
Absolutely.
They do multi-day wine tastings. They get sent to specialized leadership seminars on customer experience. I mean, it's polished and it represents a massive corporate investment.
But the second you push through those swinging doors into the kitchen,
Total chaos.
exactly, the environment completely shifts.
It's 1,000,000 degrees, pans are clanging, and the line cooks, the people actually manufacturing the product you're selling, are basically handed a laminated recipe card on day one, like, figure it out and don't burn the steak.
It perfectly illustrates the ultimate disconnect in the modern workplace. We have fundamentally separated the people who actually do the work from the people who get the development.
And that disconnect is the exact problem we are taking apart today. We're on a mission in this deep dive to explore a really critical, urgent question.
Right.
How do we bring training and development directly to the contributors while they are doing their jobs? We are talking specifically about those deskless, remote, and mobile workers.
Because this is a massive segment of the workforce that traditional training models have, frankly, just left behind.
Yeah.
And the consequences are really catching up with us.
To figure out how to fix this, we're pulling from a pretty fascinating stack of sources. Our guiding framework today comes from David Elser's blog post, Talent Development 2.0, along with some foundational concepts from his book, Doing the Chores.
And to ground his philosophy in hard reality, we're also looking at the brand new 2025 ATD State of the Industry Report and Gallup's 2026 State of the Global Workplace Report.
So whether you are prepping for a boardroom strategy meeting, managing a frontline team, or you're out there on the warehouse floor yourself, we are going to break down why traditional corporate training is failing the majority of the workforce.
And, more importantly, how a radical role-centric shift can turn things around.
Right. So let's start with the stakes, because the data from those reports paints a really clear picture of why we need a paradigm shift, like right now.
It really does. The Gallup 2026 report shows global employee engagement has plummeted to just 20%.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the lowest we've seen since 2020.
So basically, 4 out of 5 people are essentially showing up, doing the bare minimum to not get fired, and going home.
Exactly.
But why is the lack of training causing that specific level of psychological checkout?
Well, human beings need a sense of mastery to feel fulfilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you are handed a tool or placed on an assembly line and expected to just hit a quota without any investment in your actual skills, you feel like a replaceable cog.
You just stagnate.
To stagnate. And the 2025 ATD report really highlights the mechanism behind this.
Yeah.
The average number of formal learning hours used per employee has dropped to just 13.7 hours a year.
Barely over a single hour a month. And I mean, let's be honest about what that hour usually looks like. It's not deep skill building.
Oh, no, it really isn't. The ATD data breaks down where those hours go, and the most common areas are managerial training, basic new employee orientation, and mandatory compliance.
Oh, so that 1 hour a month is often just a worker clicking next on a cybersecurity video to satisfy some legal requirement.
Pretty much. The whole formal training apparatus is heavily skewed toward leadership development and basic box checking.
It's like traditional corporate training is a map for a city that is constantly being rebuilt. We pull managers into a conference room, give them the static map, and send them out. Meanwhile, the delivery drivers, the nurses, the factory workers, the actual engine of the company, they don't even get the map. They just get a generic safety pamphlet.
The irony is that traditional training models, bringing people into a classroom, hiring an instructor, worked reasonably well for leadership concepts or strategy.
Sure.
We have to be respectful of the fact that traditional learning and development built the modern corporate structure. But it fundamentally breaks down when applied to the frontline workflow.
Right, because you cannot shut down a hospital ward to send 50 nurses to a 3-hour seminar on a new software update.
Exactly. Which means we need a totally different delivery system.
We need to stop pulling the car into the garage to tune the engine and figure out how to tune it while it's actually driving down the highway.
And that is the core premise of David Elser's work. To fix this, he argues we have to completely reframe how we view the contributor.
Okay, how so?
He uses this brief, super practical analogy from his own background on a family farm. On a farm, you don't learn how to fix a tractor or manage crops by sitting in a barn listening to a lecture.
No, you learn it while executing the farmer's plan. You learn it while you're actually doing the chores.
Precisely. Grandpa gives you a task and says, be smart about it. You have to problem solve in the moment. That ethos learning in the flow of the actual work is the bedrock of what Elser calls smart followership.
Wait, I have to pause you there because the word follower is like practically a dirty word in corporate circles.
Oh, absolutely.
It evokes an image of someone just blindly taking orders, almost like a drone. Why anchor a modern development theory to a word that sounds so passive?
That reaction is incredibly common. But Elser is purposely challenging that stigma. If you look at his definitions, he separates the organization into distinct functions to clarify their value.
Okay.
Management is about exercising authority to ensure stability and efficiency. Leadership is a mutual influence relationship aimed at creating change.
So where does the follower fit in?
Smart followership is the direct counterpart to management. And it is not passive at all. Elser defines it as the ability and willingness to learn from others while enthusiastically providing support to achieve shared goals.
I see.
Think of the people moving the physical levers of your business, the warehouse staff, the nurses, the truck drivers. The organization literally grinds to a halt without them. They are practicing smart followership.
So if management creates the structure, the contributor executes it. But execution requires constant, real-time problem solving.
Yes, and that brings us to the solution, Talent Development 2.0. If we accept that contributors are the engine, TD 2.0 is the holistic, role-centric approach where learning travels with the deskless worker.
Rather than forcing the worker to travel to the learning.
Exactly. And Elser builds this on three main pillars.
Let's really dig into these pillars because this is where the philosophy turns into actionable mechanics. So pillar 1 is learn when needed, or what Elser calls intelligent access.
Right. This is about giving the worker immediate support exactly when a problem arises. The key shift here is moving from just-in-case learning to just-in-time learning.
Because traditional training teaches you how to handle a machine jam that you might not experience for 6 months.
And by the time it happens, you've completely forgotten the procedure. Intelligent access puts the solution at the point of friction.
So what does that actually look like practically? Are we talking about a massive software overhaul?
It can be as simple or as advanced as the environment requires. On the simpler side, it's placing a QR code directly on a complex piece of warehouse machinery.
Oh, nice.
A worker scans it with a company device, and a 30-second, highly specific video pops up showing them exactly how to clear the jam safely.
Okay, and on the advanced side?
We are looking at AI search hubs.
Wait, define an AI search hub in this context? Because I immediately picture someone on a factory floor typing a prompt into ChatGPT, which seems incredibly inefficient.
Yeah, it's not a general knowledge chatbot. An AI search hub in TD 2.0 is a secure, internal system trained exclusively on the company's operating procedures and safety protocols.
Ah, got it.
So a mobile worker, like a telecommunications technician up on a utility pole, can use voice commands to ask, what is the torque spec for the new bracket?
And the AI doesn't give them a 40-page PDF to read.
Nope. It synthesizes the manual and reads back the exact 2-sentence answer they need in that moment.
I can really see the efficiency there. You're reducing the cognitive load. Instead of making them memorize a manual, you're giving them a real-time GPS for their specific problem.
Exactly. And that leads naturally into pillar 2, learn together, or collaborative learning signals.
Okay, so pillar 1 solves the individual's immediate problem. But what if a whole shift needs to know about a new hazard or a new technique? How does this model scale from one person to a team without dragging everyone into a conference room?
By leaning into the fact that humans are inherently social learners. In TD 2.0, knowledge doesn't just flow top-down from a manager, it moves side to side between peers.
Give me a real-world example of how that works without causing total chaos.
Think about a busy hospital ward. A veteran nurse figures out a much more efficient way to organize a crash cart that saves critical seconds during an emergency.
Under the old model, maybe they tell their immediate coworkers, but the knowledge basically dies there.
Right. But under TD 2.0, that nurse records a quick 40-second video on a secure mobile platform demonstrating the setup. That video becomes a collaborative learning signal.
Oh, wow.
It gets broadcast on digital shiftboards in the break room or shown during a 2-minute visual huddle at the start of the next shift.
I love that because it democratizes the knowledge. You are capturing the localized genius of your best workers and instantly scaling it across the organization.
Exactly. And it empowers the contributor. They aren't just taking orders. They are actively shaping the best practices of the company.
Which brings us to the third and honestly, arguably most futuristic pillar. Learn while working, or embedded performance guidance.
Yes. This is where we integrate learning directly into the work itself.
So this is where technology truly acts as a coach rather than just a reference library.
Embedded guidance means the system you are using to do your job also helps you improve at your job.
So we're talking about things like visual job aids or smart checklists. But Elser also mentions AI-driven learning nudges. Explain the mechanics of that.
Sure. Imagine a delivery driver using a routing scanner. The software detects that the driver consistently struggles with a specific type of hazardous material scan, causing recurring errors.
Okay.
Instead of flagging the driver for a disciplinary review with a manager next week, the scanner itself offers a quick embedded coaching moment. A prompt pops up saying, "Notice you're having trouble with this scan. Here's a 10-second audio tip on the correct sequence."
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here because if I am an operations director listening to this, alarms are going off in my head.
I bet.
Handing every forklift driver a tablet, putting augmented reality glasses on mechanics, integrating AI into delivery scanners. I mean, this sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It's a big shift, sure.
And more importantly, it sounds incredibly expensive. Are organizations truly ready to foot the bill for this kind of tech? And doesn't adding screens to a loud, dangerous factory floor just create massive safety distractions?
Those are the exact concerns leadership teams raise, and, they are valid. But let's tackle the distraction element first.
Okay.
TD 2.0 is explicitly designed to reduce cognitive load, not add to it. A worker leafing through a paper manual while trying to fix a high-pressure valve is distracted.
That's true.
But a worker wearing an AR overlay, where digital arrows highlight the specific bolt they need to turn without them having to look away from the machine, is actually safer and more focused. The learning is overlaid onto the reality of the work.
Okay, I see how the UI integration solves the distraction issue. But what about the cost? Overhauling a company's entire technical infrastructure is a massive capital expense.
It is an investment, yes, but we have to compare it to the hidden bleeding costs of the status quo. Let's look back at that 2025 ATD data. Over 60% of organizations are still relying heavily on live, instructor-led, traditional classrooms. The average direct expenditure for training is $1,254 per employee.
And that's just the direct cost of the training materials and the instructor.
Right. That doesn't even account for the lost productivity. Think about the cost of pulling 50 workers off a manufacturing floor, stopping the assembly line, and putting them in a conference room for 3 hours.
Ouch.
Add to that the cost of the inevitable manufacturing errors when those workers forget what they learned in the seminar 3 weeks later.
The cost of the mistakes is the real drain.
Precisely. The ROI of Talent Development 2.0 is found in the flow of work. Building an AI nudge into a scanner or slapping a 50-cent QR code on a machine costs a fraction of a corporate retreat.
Oh, true.
You build the digital learning asset once, and it lives on the floor indefinitely, traveling with every single new shift. It scales beautifully because you aren't paying for empty seats in a classroom. You're investing directly in the workflow.
That completely flips the script. But if we move away from classrooms and seminars, what happens to the people whose entire job is running those classrooms? I mean, this implies a massive paradigm shift for learning and development professionals.
It completely changes their job description. In TD 2.0, the training department can no longer function just as a class provider. They must evolve into architects of a learning ecosystem.
So they aren't standing at a whiteboard anymore. They are designing the access points, curating the AI knowledge hubs, and shaping those collaborative signals.
They transition from being the sole source of knowledge to the facilitators of knowledge. And Elser makes a really crucial point about how they should use AI in this new role.
What's that?
Well, there's a massive temptation for training departments to use AI just to turn out more traditional content faster.
Right, like using ChatGPT to write a 60-page compliance manual in 10 seconds instead of 10 days.
Exactly. But a 60-page manual generated by AI is still a 60-page manual that a line cook or a warehouse worker does not have time to read. AI shouldn't be used to scale the old broken model. It should act as a real-time pass coach, a language translator for a diverse frontline workforce, or a curator that distills complex protocols into immediate micro-learning.
So if you are an executive, a training director, or a manager listening to this, the message is pretty clear. If you are ignoring the deskless contributor, you are leaving major ROI on the table.
Huge amounts.
The future belongs to organizations that stop asking, how do we get our people into a training room? And start asking, how do we bring practical, contextual learning to the exact moment the work happens?
And that shift in questioning is how you solve the crisis we started with. The Gallup data shows us that employee well-being and engagement skyrocket when people feel their work is intrinsically rewarding and they are given the support to master their craft.
It's really about respect. We have to stop treating contributors as just hands on a steering wheel or cogs in a machine. Development shouldn't be a VIP privilege restricted to the managers in the dining room while the kitchen burns down. It has to travel with the contributor. We have to embed intelligent, accessible, and collaborative learning into the everyday chores of the job.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over as they look at their own organizations. Think about the incredible untapped potential sitting on your front line right now.
Yeah.
What happens when you finally give those workers the daily tools to master their environment? What if the next $1 million innovation in your supply chain or your customer service doesn't come from a manager's offsite retreat, but from a deskless worker who finally received the right learning tool at the exact right moment and just figured out a better way to do the work?
Wow. That is a powerful question to ask yourself today. If you want to dive deeper into how to make this a reality, we highly encourage you to visit doingthechores.com. You can learn more about Talent Development 2.0, explore David Elser's blog, and start getting creative about how to bring training directly to the contributors in your own workplace while they are on the job. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Wow, what did you think of that deep dive? You know, the whole purpose is to highlight how training can travel with a contributor, how technology can actually help us do that. In the process, basically, there's a lot of thought-provoking ideas on how you can leverage technology in order to allow the training to travel with the contributor, to make sure that him or her actually have access to training, you know, from step one, you know, and then how do you socialize training, step two, right? And then how do you actually embed training, step three? Those are roughly the three pillars that I talk about in my blog at doingthechores.com. Go ahead and check it out if you're interested. But the payoff from this, you know, there's a lot of payoff from this from an organizational perspective, but also from an individual perspective, because nobody likes starting a job or doing a job that they haven't been trained for. One thing I'd like to add is that some of you are thinking, oh, we're just a small company, Dave. We only have 50 or 75 workers. We're not like some big organization that has 300,000 people. We don't have, you know, deep pockets for all this IT stuff. Well, that's true, but hopefully maybe it's true, but hopefully this podcast will spark some ideas on how you can leverage, you know, AI that you do have, you know, the cell phones, a laptop, or, you know, ThinkPad, or whatever you may have, and how can you leverage that to make learning more accessible to your folks out there on the floor, out there on the front lines, whether they are a deskless employee or a remote employee, or even a desk, even if they do work behind a desk. You know, one time I visited a corporate headquarters up in Michigan, and when I walked into the building, one of the first things that I had to do, because they were very, very big on safety, they had this big screen TV up there with a little app, and I had to click on this app and just watch a 3-minute video on safety and a little bit of history about the company. Now that is exactly what I talked about earlier. Having access to learning right at the moment you need it, making it embedded, and making it social, right? Those three pillars that I talk about in my blog. So yes, I understand some of this technology is kind of far-fetched. You don't have the deep pockets to do that. But what can you do, right? What can you do? Challenge your training and development department and challenge your HR department. What can you do to make sure that, that you can embed learning? I have a chore chat out there. I think it's chore chat number 39, in which I talk about an instructional design model 3-to-1, and basically where you want to create 3 on-the-job activities for every one learning event that you may have. And that learning event might be a short video. So check out that chore chat. I'm pretty sure it's chore chat 39 at doingthechores.com. So like I said, if you work in talent development, I hope this sparks some interest, because the future is not going to, for talent development professionals, the future is not going to be using AI to create more manuals faster, just like the deep dive said. No, the future of talent development is going to be how can we make sure that our training that we're creating out there is easily accessible, it's social, and it's actually embedded into the workforce. So hopefully you enjoyed this deep dive. Again, I appreciate you following me on this AI Chore Cast. Check out my AI Chore Chats. And of course, I'd really appreciate it if you check out my book, Doing the Chores. All available at doingthechores.com. Until next time, make sure you go out there and create a great memory for someone today. Thank you.